Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the Kenwood DMX709s. Now, I had a rough start with this head unit with the preamp testing fiasco and being a little disappointed that it's a different operating system than previous models, but now that I've really gotten to know it, this is actually one of my favorite head units. Now, it's not all kittens and rainbows, but there is a ton of features packed into this that make it really hard to beat. Let me tell you about all the ways that I love the Kenwood DMX709s. All right, so let's really get to know this DMX709s. I think this is my favorite iDatalink Maestro sound quality value priced head unit on the market right now. When you compare it to some of the other brands that are offering iDatalink Maestro compatibility, I feel like this Kenwood DMX709s is just giving you so much bang for your buck that it really deserves a thorough look. The entire interface is very different from what Kenwood's done in the past. That's one thing I'm not a huge fan of, is this operating system. Previous Kenwood models are using Linux, which is not like the fanciest operating system like they have on the DMX958XR or the 908S. This definitely gets the job done. It reminds me of like an older Android operating system like KitKat 4.4, but it works. It gives you everything you need. This head unit's got obviously Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It is a wired connection, USB 1.5 amp charging. It also has your HD radio. One thing I really like about HD, if you're a fan of it, is you do have the option to pick how it's actually receiving. So if you're in an area where you're really kind of on the fringe and it's going in and out from HD to regular and it's driving you nuts, you can just go in here and put it straight on analog and turn it off completely. That's a nice feature, I think. As far as your presets go, you're gonna scroll here. How many presets? 5? Another set of 5, another set of 5, and then your AM 5. So 15 for your FM and 5 for your AM. Actually, I kind of like how they did that so that it's not scrolling. So if you're trying to pick a preset, you just have these 5 to pick from. So it's kind of fixed depending on which band you're on, and then just tap this to go between your different bands. Smart. I hate scrolling presets. Good move. And then of course you could just do your manual up and down right here if you have it set to seek to the next strongest station. See right down here where it says Auto 1. If I have it on Auto 1, it's just going to go to that next strongest channel. Auto 2 is going to change this to preset seek. And then manual, now I can go one by one, get to a particular channel that I want, and then just press and hold to set that preset channel. So actually pretty easy to use layout on that FM and AM. Again, the graphics, there's, you know, they could be prettier, but this is a value priced head unit that is giving you a ton of features for the money, so they're going to cut corners somewhere, and it looks like they did with the graphics. Thankfully, they did not cut corners on the sound quality, and although I had tested this with sound check on and had that blunder where it looked like we were not getting 5 volts out of this, once I turned sound check off, I saw that yes, this is in fact 5 volts front, rear, and subwoofer. The internal amplifier in this is also a little bit higher than you're going to get with some of the other brands on the market at 22 watts RMS per channel. That's really nice if you plan on doing your audio upgrade in phases. Speaking of doing audio upgrades in phases, this is going to give you a ton of audio control. So you have your standard 13 band graphic EQ, and it also has your built-in, wow, you can have 4 different presets. It has your built-in EQ like pops, rock, jazz, top 40, that kind of stuff. Powerful. So for those that don't really want to mess around with it, there's some preset EQs that you can play with. And then you also have the option to do this EQ separately for all sources. That's really nice if you are going between Sirius XM, which is a very compressed signal, over to, you know, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with a higher quality music app like Tidal or Amazon HD or Apple Music. It's nice to be able to set that EQ source dependently, and that's one thing Kenwood has always done, which I'm a huge fan of. In addition to the audio control there, you're going to have all your standard Kenwood sound effects such as Supreme, Drive EQ, Loudness, Bass Boost, Realizer, Stage EQ, and Space Enhancer. Out of all of these, Supreme is usually the only one that I actually leave on. You're also going to have built-in crossover adjustments. There's kind of a generic car setup, which is cool. You can tell the speaker size. And then you can also do a 3-way setup on here, which is kind of neat. They call it three-way network mode. To access the two-way and three-way crossover network mode, you're going to go into standby. To do that, from the home screen, you tap this, scroll over to the second page, select standby, and then you're going to press and hold the volume down button and the upper right corner of the screen at the same time. If you wanted to have your tweeters as your front, your door speakers as your quote rear, and the subwoofer, just forget your rear speakers, there's actually a way to set that up into that three-way network mode. The only thing I would advise if you are going to use that feature, I do think you're going to get better sound quality using crossovers externally that are bi-ampable rather than using the head unit to actually do your tweeter crossover. Just because if you don't get that dialed in perfectly, you can either damage your tweeters or you can actually just end up making it sound pretty harsh. And that's regardless of whether you're using a digital sound processor or just a basic crossover adjustment in this head unit. It's really important to get that set up properly if you're going to use that feature. And if you're doing a more basic setup where you're running your main speakers off the head unit and you're throwing a subwoofer in there, it's great to go into this and be able to tell your door speakers just to play 80 hertz and up, let your sub play all the bass. Even though they may be stock speakers, they're going to play a little bit louder, more efficiently for you. So having that internal crossover and having the ability to adjust it separately for front and rear is fantastic. You do also have subwoofer crossover control, which is nice because sometimes the crossover on your amplifier, you want to be able to like mess with it while you're in the car, and it's kind of hard to go back and forth. So you can actually, you know, set it if you want like at 200 hertz or as high as it can go on your subwoofer amp, and then you can actually go into the head unit and dial it in from here while you're actually sitting in the driver's seat listening to it. So I do like that they give you that option to do your subwoofer crossover from the head unit, but you could actually just turn that off if you want to use it on the amp. Don't use both, use one or the other. So if you're going to use the one in the head unit, either turn the crossover off or just all the way up to like 200 or 220, whatever it lets you do on the sub amp. Another really cool feature that Kenwood always gives you is time alignment. So you can actually digitally delay the closest speakers so that the ones that are nearest to you, you can basically digitally push them out and center your soundstage to right in front of you. The concept is when you close your eyes, you can't pinpoint where the sound is coming from because you have all the speakers timed perfectly to hit you in the driver's position at the same time. There is instructions in the manual on how to set that up. I can put a link in the description on how to actually measure and set that up. Another really fantastic tool that Kenwood gives you in audio control features is volume offset. If you're putting this in a car that has a factory amplifier, say like a Subaru with Harman Kardon, or even an older Volkswagen with the Monsoon system, in those types of cars, you're technically just going high level into the stock amp, so you're amplifying an amplifier. This would allow you to actually go in and turn down basically the internal amp on the head unit, so you can kind of level match the two. It's a really nice feature to have versus having to buy an external part to give you that gain control. You can go into volume offset and you can internally turn down the output and all of the sources on the radio to level match it. It's also nice to have volume offset if you're going between a lot of different sources like your Sirius XM, your HD radio, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. You are going to find, depending on what type of sources you're listening to, that there are output differences, and if you want to kind of even those out, that's what you can use volume offset to do. Now the display in here, it's actually, I think, a pretty vibrant, saturated display. I think this is a really nice quality screen for this price point, but there's not a lot you can do to customize it. You could upload your own background image if you wanted to. They do have a couple of different backgrounds built in. Now if you do want to upload your own picture, you have to put that on a USB thumb drive, and then it will pull up whatever images you have on that USB thumb drive, but it will not pull that directly from your phone. You do just have to put that on a USB flash drive. The other thing that I think a lot of clients are gonna like, that a lot of people ask about, is this color panel right here. You can change that. In a lot of other head units, they're always gonna illuminate white. Not much you can do to modify that, but with Kenwood, they do give you the option to pick whatever you want. You can also go in and actually dial in the red, green, and blue values to get it really perfected, but I'm actually just gonna leave this on scan. And then there's two different home screens that you can have. I prefer the classic Kenwood with the big clock and then the album art on the left, or you can have that nice bright background image. But keep in mind, if you're using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, That's gonna look the same regardless. Now, one thing that a lot of people ask me about with the Sirius XM is, will it show album art? It will. I don't actually have a tuner connected here in the showroom, but I did verify in the owner's guide that it will actually show you album art, which is a pretty nice feature. The other major upgrade that this particular stereo got is updated Maestro graphics. So this is iDatalink Maestro compatible, and I said that's one of the reasons I thought this was a great value, because there are certain cars where you need an iDatalink Maestro compatible stereo if you want to replace the stereo. I've said this before, like I've used the 2016 Jeep Cherokee as an example. Your climate controls are going through that. So if you want to replace the radio, you have to put something in there that can retain all the information that's flowing through there. Ford also does this in a lot of their older pickup trucks. If you have that 8-inch Sony touch radio, those fail over time. You may find yourself in the market for replacing it. And if you don't want to spend a crazy amount of money on a head unit that's going to work with it, for $450, this is a fantastic value. And it's definitely a nice upgrade in the graphics over previous models. If you have park sensors, that would be displayed here. Vehicle information, show your tire pressure monitoring, battery voltage. If you have a check engine light that pops on, you could actually read what the error code is, and if it's not a major fault, you can actually clear it. Performance gauges. I don't know how popular those are, but that is something that is included with a lot of Maestro compatible vehicles. And in some vehicles, you can actually retain the factory Sirius XM. That's why you're seeing that icon right up there. I have yet to see that work in a vehicle. Certain GMs it should work, but it seems like everyone I've tried it in actually had the tuner in the radio, so I wasn't able to retain it. Other cool features. This actually has an HDMI input. It's a micro HDMI. So I've got an adapter connected to that, and then I've got an adapter from Apple. I'm gonna switch my phone connection over to that so we can see how the image quality is. So here I am explaining my blunder with my preamp voltage testing. That's actually a pretty good picture, I would say. So if you want to sit somewhere and watch movies or YouTube or something from your phone, this HDMI input is a really nice feature to have. Certainly not necessary, but it's just a nice perk. And it's something that John and I like to do. We go for rides on Sunday. We'll sit around the car someplace and have coffee and tea and just chill out and watch some YouTube. All right, well, how responsive is this touchscreen, right? So if I go into, let me go back in there. Let me go into a playlist. Let's go. That's pretty responsive. Just playing around with it, I feel like I haven't accidentally selected something when I meant to select something else. So I am pretty happy with how responsive this touchscreen is. I think they did a good job. And I think the vibrancy is nice too. I think this is better than the Sony screen, honestly, guys. And from a sound quality perspective, this has your typical eXcelon sound. You can't beat it. You've got that smoothness that's vibrant and detailed and clear, but it's never harsh. It's kind of hard for me to explain. I'm doing the best I can, but it's their signature sound. And this head unit has it. Even though it's like a, kind of a very different operating system, it has that signature eXcelon sound quality that Kenwood fans have grown to love and are loyal to. If you want that type of sound quality, you're gonna get it at this price point, which is awesome. I'm so glad that they didn't sacrifice in any way there. And the other thing you're gonna get with anything that's Kenwood eXcelon is that 2-year warranty, which is a great value in and of itself. When it comes to installing this stereo in a car, it does have that shallow chassis, which makes it a lot easier in a lot of newer vehicles. And in fact, in some cars, like a 2019 Volkswagen Jetta that we're doing coming up next week, we have to go with something shallow. We're gonna see that, I think, more and more in newer vehicles. So shallow chassis is key. It also just makes it easier for wire management, gives you a little bit more flexibility in getting everything that you need back there, especially if you're adding in your Sirius XM module, your Maestro module. It can get a little busy behind the dash. This overall look and layout is a little bit different than other Kenwood models. It's got that tablet look and finish, which some people are a fan of, some are not. I think it looks great, but I don't know how practical it is if you have an older car where you don't actually have steering wheel controls. Sometimes it's nice to just reach over and press a button or feel a button, but if you have steering wheel controls and that's what you're used to using, then I don't think that would be an issue at all. As far as an actual appearance goes, clients are gravitating towards this tablet look. It's very sleek and attractive. I also want to point out that this unit comes with a GPS antenna for improved accuracy when using either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And it does have 2 camera inputs. In addition to the camera inputs, there's actually a way to adjust guidance lines on the screen. You can turn those guidance lines on or off, and you can actually adjust them and configure them to what makes sense for your particular vehicle. That's nice if you have to mount your camera off center. Allows you to tweak this so that the guidance lines make sense and line up when you back into a parking space, for example. And this mute on reverse, a lot of parents like that feature. As soon as you put the vehicle into reverse, it will mute the audio so you can stop and focus just for 30 seconds or whatever you need. This unit also has something called Mirroring OA for Kenwood or Android Mirroring Ready. I don't have an Android phone to test this with, but the way you would actually turn it on and off, my understanding is through the connections menu. You would go into your device list and you would switch whether you're being connected for Android Auto or USB mirroring. So you'd have to go into here and toggle. I think it's just as easy to connect an HDMI cable and then you're not having to fuss with changing settings, but that's totally a personal preference. Not sure how great that app actually is, but it is one of the features of this radio to be aware of. This unit, unlike many other head units on the market these days, it actually comes with a mounting sleeve and a trim ring. I know there's very few cars in the market where we're actually using the mounting sleeve and trimming. Most installations we're doing ISO mount with the installation kit. We have everything we need, but you know, maybe you have an older Range Rover like Defender that you want to put this in. You're going to need a mounting sleeve and a trim ring in a vehicle like that or in a custom application. And it's just one less thing that you have to buy. So again, from a value perspective, I really like that they include that. And it also has that gloss black finish, which looks really sharp with this sleek black screen. One drawback about this particular layout, you can't drag and drop these icons. Unlike previous Kenwood models where you can drag and drop, on this one, I cannot say put my Sirius XM on the home page or something like that. There is no drag and drop function that I could find anyways. If you guys know anything about it, let me know. Maybe I just haven't figured out and I didn't see anything in the manual about that. So that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.